When working as a designer, we're often put in a bunch of different positions working with other brands, especially if you're a consultant working on different products all the time. Sometimes you get a scenario where you get a very strict color palette, and this can be any size of company. Like I personally encountered this with both large and small companies. Totally fine. It's pretty normal. And the great thing about this is that, sometimes some palettes that are strict are pretty extensive. They have enough colors and options for digital products, but there are a lot of them that don't. And that's because they are only really thought of as like just brand colors. So this is kind of the scenario that we have today. We have just like brand colors. And the first thing I really like to do is to dive into this color palette and ask myself some questions like, do I have enough here to really use them for UI? And I think the obvious answer is no. Like we can't just use white, black, and this orange. We have to actually go in there and play around a bit. Now, can I add some shades or some variations of that existing palette here? The first thing I really do is, after I'm asking myself those types of questions, I will go to my client and tell them that we need to really extend this so it can actually be usable from a digital perspective. Most times, clients will definitely agree to expand the palette if it's really needed, especially if you need more variation within that product that you're designing. So let's see how we can come up with some neutrals for this palette here. So neutrals I always found the easiest to come up with. You just need to strike a balance. Too many neutrals, means that your designs become kind of washed out and there's no contrast or hierarchy. It's nice to have some variation, but generally I try to keep it between like 5 and 9, I don't think you need any more than that. And then even within those amount of neutrals, I'm always just like choosing maybe 3 that I'm using, consistently. And then if there are more complex layouts that need those other types of shades or neutrals, we're bringing those in. So let's jump right in. So what I usually do is I'm going to hold down Shift and Option. You can just hold down Option or Alt on Windows and just like drag and duplicate. Shift allows you to just make sure it's straight. So I'm going to just drag another one down, and then you can press Command D. And then there you go. So I have a bunch here. Now you can do a couple of things. What I really like to do sometimes, I'm actually going to make 2 different copies here. I'm going to move this over so you can see what my flow kind of looks like. And you can follow along with me in this color resource that's available for you. So let's just move that over. Okay, so there's 2 ways you can do this. The easy way is, just grabbing the color and then just going down and, adjusting the opacity a bit until it kind of feels right. And you're making some variation. I'm kind of looking for that degradation all the way down to, getting very light. So that's pretty easy. I'm just going to go to 65%. I'm just adjusting that over there. Over here, I'll probably just go to like 40. Maybe we need a bit more variation here. Over here, we're down to maybe 55. I'm only going to work with 5 right now. And then over here, we can go down to like 25. This can probably even come down more to like 45. We got 25, and then this one could be something like 10. So there you go. Like you see how like we've easily made a bunch of different colors here. And now we can use these for like disabled states, icons, just making hierarchy within typography really is going to help us. The other option is, grabbing this. I'm actually going to remove these because I'm going to work off the next layer. So another option is just grabbing it and then, moving that up manually. And sometimes, it gives you a little more control working with the paints over here, because now you can, come in and adjust this a little bit to get a little bit of like that color in there. So it's a very warm neutral instead of like a just plain grayscale neutral. So I'm coming in a little bit more, sticking really close to that edge, kind of flirting with the color a bit there. I know the actual difference between these two isn't huge, but it does make quite a difference, especially when you're applying them to like backgrounds on like websites and stuff like that. So I'm coming in, now I'm starting to get a little closer to like the left side. And so you can do this manually so you have a little bit more control over how exactly you want this color to evolve. And that's about it. So that's how we've got our neutrals ready. It's really beautiful. Now, these, like I said, these neutrals can be used for a variety of things like backgrounds, alternate colors for text, etc. Now let's take a look at how much of a difference this is going to make. Now, if I go over to here, we can start building out these colors. So I'm going to just expand this a bit. See, I'm not going to use white because white's just going to be like naturally the last color here. And over here, the color is probably going to be closer to, you know, black or near black. I never really use black. I'm going to delete this middle row here. And I'm just going to hold, I'm selecting them all, I'm holding shift, and then I'm rotating. And there we go. Okay, now a couple things we're going to do here. Let's go in and start thinking of the different colors that can be, you know, paired with this orange. Orange is sometimes a harder color to work with because there's not many colors that really work nicely with it. I would say generally I would try to stick with like some yellows and maybe some reds just to kind of, you know, keep that warm palette. You can have some accents in there if you want, but I'm going to stick just to like this kind of monochromatic scheme over here a bit. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my color picker. Well, I mean, not my color picker. I'm going to click the fill to access the paints here. And what we can do is now we can start, you know, bringing in this color a bit more, you know, giving ourselves a couple of just options for if, you know, you need just some extra options for like backgrounds and whatnot. So this gives me a little bit more flexibility. Okay. That looks good. And I think we can kind of stick with this. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to start thinking about some colors that really complement orange. You know, we can change the tone a bit. We can actually come in here and, you know, get a little bit more yellows. Sometimes I'll come in and I'll create like two versions. Like I'll have a really, you know, light version and then like the main version I'm going to use the majority of the time. I'm going to select both of them and duplicate them. And then I'm going to come up with another one here. So I'm going to actually go with red. I don't think like green is going to play well. You can also kind of test like orange and blue are actually not that bad. So we could go in that direction. We can go red. I think red's like the safest direction, but if we want something a little exciting, you know, we can kind of work towards this. So let's try it out because I think that'll be fun. So that will be my main blue. And so what thing you'll notice is I copied this color and I'm basically keeping everything the same. This is where the yellow was over here. So I'm keeping that the same. I'm not adjusting anything there. And I'm going to do the same thing for this. I'm going to go over here and try to get close to that tint of that blue. So we have, you know, a lighter version. And there we go. So we have a pretty nice palette that, you know, the only thing that we really had before I started here, and I'm just going to copy this whole frame, but the only thing we really had here at the beginning was something like this. So, I mean, going from that to this gives us, you know, some massive flexibility. I think the other thing that I've maybe not have mentioned is that although this may not be totally on brand, and if they're really strict and they don't want those colors, you know, you can just keep it monochromatic, which is really easy, and most apps are these days. But this will allow you to like use them for cards and stuff like that, different types of buttons. Another good thing to think about is like the different types of UI colors. So you may want to, think about like a green just for like the UI purpose. Come in with like a green and a red, or like two variations of them if you have like pills. So there's a lot of options for stuff like that you need to actually think about that most people forget. So definitely start thinking about like, those types of use cases, but that's how you can expand upon a pretty strict color palette.